Welcome, new and old friends. My name is 242, and tonight I have 4 spine-chilling tales for you this spooky, scary Sunday. First one is about seeing a grandfather one last time. The second about the rules to follow to stay alive in your teacher's lab. The third about why maybe you should pay attention when your dog barks. And our last one this evening is about 2 siblings having to pick one of them to die. So, make sure you're safe before you sit back and listen to these chilling tales. I saw my grandfather at his own funeral, held his hand, spoke with him, and took a walk together one last time. My grandfather died in 1995 due to emphysema and other health concerns. He was in his early 60s and left us prematurely, as he had many people who loved and depended on him, including many young grandchildren. I was only 4 years old, almost 5 at the time when he passed, and I don't remember much from the darker time in my life, but I remember his funeral extremely vividly. I was in a funeral home that had multiple parlors and many hallways throughout the building. I remember being outside his parlor and seeing him across the room. We locked eyes. I walked over to him. After all, he was my grandpa, and I did not realize at the time he had passed on. We began our usual, as we were 2 peas in a pod, and had a special relationship. We held hands and walked through the halls. Much of the conversation I do not recall, but I do remember showing him the lounge area, as that was my favorite place to be, what with all the snack machines and vending machines. As we approached the area that we had met at, we stopped, and he said to me, "Michael, I have to go now." He had vanished, literally leaving my hand empty in the air. I can still see my empty hand and remember the shock and confusion. The part that helps me think that this was an authentic experience, and this is something my grandmother, aunt, and mother remember well, and were concerned for years about. As I approach the open casket, my mother picks me up. I see my grandpa Leroy there, in his peace, and I begin, confused, to relentlessly ask why Grandpa was in the casket, and what is wrong with him. My mother told me crying, and I remember this clearly. "Michael, honey, he is dead. He is gone and not coming back." I was in disbelief, arguing, No, I just saw him. He's outside." After this, I remember us all crying together, but that is all. I never spoke about it until I was 12 or 13 years old. I was at my grandmother's, and her health was wavering at the time. I had been thinking about it a lot with her being in the state and having memories of my experience. And I finally broke down and told them what I had remembered. Again, we cried. And they didn't believe I could remember that, or that I had held on to it through all the years of childhood. They, in a way, directly corroborated my experience for me. At least solidified it in my head as a final goodbye from one of my favorite human beings, as they remembered the scene at the casket. They were always too afraid to ask me about it, maybe to protect me from my emotional anguish. My grandmother, for the remaining years or so she was with us, would ask me to tell her the story anytime I would visit her. She also claimed to have woken up one day feeling my grandfather laying next to her. She said she could feel it was him, as if she went to bed next to him and woke up together. She never told anyone until I had shared my story. I hope anyone listening to this enjoyed the story. It's one I will never forget. Rules for Miss Cora's biology lab. 1. Please wash your hands before entering the lab and immediately after leaving. The lab must be clean as possible at all times. 2. The tables be arranged differently every class. This is for your safety. Simply find a seat and take it. 3. If you notice that there is an empty lab stool at your table, notify Miss Cora immediately. Do not try to remember who once sat there. 4. Never open the vials by the main sink. Nobody knows what the liquids inside are. 5. Do not insult the things preserved in the jars at the back of the room. They hold grudges. 6. Once you put on your safety goggles, you can no longer trust your eyes. The things you may see are not real. Do not let them convince you they are. 7. Sometimes the librarian will stop in during class to inquire about overdue books. Please ignore him and keep in mind that we no longer have a library. 8. During dissections, all students are to keep in mind that all mammals provided to them are male. The things inside them are not fetuses, even if they have limbs. 9. Do not comment on how real the lab skeleton looks. He knows. 10. Leave the lab when Miss Cora does, even if this is during the middle of the class. She knows the things in there better than anyone. She knows when they're angry. 11. When exiting the lab, do not leave anything behind, as it will not be there when you come back for it. This includes fellow students. 12. Miss Cora will never call you into the lab from the hall without poking her head out from the door. Remember this. Number 13. Do not enter the lab after school hours unless you are confident that you are favored by at least one god, ancient or otherwise. You will need their protection. 14. Never come to class unprepared. Ever. Thank God my dog woke me up. Hi everyone. I finally decided to post what happened to me 4 years ago. English is not my first language. At the time, I was 17 years old and I was living for a few years in a small house with my mom. After my parents divorced 6 years ago. The house wasn't huge, but we had one floor with our bedrooms and small garden. We also had a dog, who isn't really scary. It's one of those small dogs with lots of hair. His biggest problem is that he barks a lot during the day every time someone's close to the garden. That annoys me and my neighbors a lot. It's important to note that my dog never barks at night and always sleeps in my bed with me. Anyway, one night in the middle of the night, I had a dream where I heard constant dog barking. In my dream, I felt like it lasted 1,000 years, but I think it only lasted a few seconds. When I woke up from the nightmare, I didn't feel the weight of my dog on my feet. I felt like something was wrong and then realized my dog was actually barking and growling. I didn't understand what was happening. I just looked for my dog and saw him on top of the stairs, his head turned towards the front door. The door opening for the garage was actually on the side of the front door. I jumped out of my bed and rushed to the top of the stairs where my dog was. There was the shadow of a man standing just at the bottom of the stairs, next to the front door. I wasn't even able to shout. I just took my dog in my arms by reflex and ran towards my mom's room. My mom was just waking up. She takes medication to sleep, so it's very hard to wake her up. Thank God the door of her bedroom can be locked with a key. Even though I was shaking like a leaf, I locked the door. My mom understood what was happening when we heard footsteps coming from the stairs. We froze in a corner of her bedroom, and she grabbed her phone to call the police. While we were trying to call the cops, the guy starts to shake the door handle and then punching the door. After a moment, he stopped, and this psycho laughed. That's when Mom had the good idea and started shouting, "I called the police, get out!" After a moment, we heard him going down the stairs, still laughing. We didn't dare move until we heard the police officers. When they arrived, no one was there. In the living room, on the table, there was a note where he wrote, "See you soon." They said later that apparently the guy got in and out by my garage, which has a back door that at that time we always left open. Immediately after, we went to live with my grandparents for a while, and then moved into a new home a couple months later. We never did hear from this guy again, but we always check every door is locked before going to bed. I have troubles falling asleep ever since. For almost a year after, I'd wait until 4 a.m. to go to sleep just to be sure he didn't find us and try to sneak into our new home. Don't trust the young.
One of you has to go,
Eddie says in his creepy, high-pitched voice, smiling at the two siblings.
Now, who will that be?
Don't do this, Gemma said quietly. Please.
I said,
Eddie repeated, smiling.
One of you has to go.
Addie and Gemma looked down. There were pins and needles all over the floor, as well as mousetraps. Eddie was holding a pillowcase, in which they knew he'd put one of the dead bodies. None of us are going, Gemma whispered to her younger sibling, Addie's ear. I promise.
I'll give you 10 seconds to decide who goes.
Eddie smiles, showing the siblings his sharp, yellow teeth. Gemma puts her arms around Addie. It's going to be okay.
10, 9, 8.
Gamma's eyes fill with tears.
7, 6, 5.
Gamma starts crying out loud.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Eddie laughs, licking his teeth.
So, who is it?
None of us, Gamma screams through her tears. Please.
Then I guess both of you will die the hard way.
Eddie smiles again, examining his sharp talons. Gamma thrusts her arms on Addie once again. Silence. In one sudden move, Addie pushes Gamma with her hands. Gammy takes one last look at Addie, then her head rips through one of the high needles. Splap. Blood splashes everywhere. Gamma's head was split open sideways, revealing her brain, blood trickling down the floor. The oldest has to die. I hope you enjoyed these stories this Sunday. If you like them, then hit that like button, and make sure it feels it. If you'd like to hear more, then hit the subscribe button and turn that bell to all notifications. Come back this Thursday for my day stories. Good night, my friends.